What drives a man of nearly 60 to step back into the brutal world of heavyweight boxing against an opponent half his age? For Mike Tyson, the answer lay somewhere between legacy and defiance. A desire to prove that Iron Mike could still command the ring. But as he prepared to face Jake Paul, a fighter eager to claim his own glory, the stakes grew perilously high. Health warnings, age, and the threat of fatal consequences turned this clash into a dangerous gamble, one that had fans equally thrilled and uneasy. What was set to be a spectacle of power and pride now carried a chilling question. Could Tyson's comeback be his final stand? The world had not seen anything like it in decades. The comeback of Iron Mike Tyson, one of the most feared heavyweight champions in boxing history. At 58 years old, the man who once dominated the ring with explosive power and raw intensity was set to face Jake Paul, a controversial new name in the boxing world who had risen from internet stardom to unexpected boxing notoriety. Fans were already buzzing with excitement, eager to witness the clash between the heavyweight legend and the young challenger, a duel of generations that promised to be nothing short of electrifying. As the fight drew closer, an unexpected complication cast a shadow over the highly anticipated event. Scheduled initially for July, the bout had to be postponed when Tyson experienced a sudden health scare. Just before boarding a flight, the champion was struck by a wave of dizziness and nausea, forcing him to delay his plans and seek medical advice. His doctors, recognizing the potential dangers, recommended additional rest and recovery time, pushing the fight back to November. This incident, a sudden reminder of Tyson's age and mortality, shook not only his team but also the global fan base that had been eagerly awaiting his return to the ring. This delay wasn't simply a matter of timing, it highlighted a deeper concern. As much as Tyson's return represented hope, nostalgia, and a chance to prove he was still capable of greatness, it also underscored the risks that loomed heavily over the match. At 58, Tyson was no longer the fierce young champion who could brush off punches like they were raindrops. Years of intense training, grueling fights, and physical wear had taken their toll, leaving him vulnerable in ways the public rarely saw. The postponement ignited speculation about the hazards he would face when he finally stepped back into the ring. Medical experts and analysts began weighing in, cautioning that even for someone of Tyson's legendary caliber, the combination of age and the demands of a heavyweight bout presented unprecedented risks. His physical prowess, while still impressive, was no longer the impenetrable shield it once was. Cardiovascular strain, elevated blood pressure, and the lingering effects of past concussions were all factors that could turn any misstep, any moment of weakness, into a fatal incident. Despite these warnings, Tyson remained steadfast, motivated by the chance to prove that he still had what it took. The postponement was just a minor setback in his eyes, a reminder of his body's limitations, yes, but not a barrier that he couldn't overcome. For him, this fight was more than just a return. It was a final chapter, an opportunity to show the world that Iron Mike could still stand tall among the best. But the world watched with bated breath, their anticipation now tinged with a sense of dread. What was supposed to be a glorious comeback could very easily spiral into a tragedy. Every punch, every blow, and every round would carry a weight greater than the match itself. The stakes were higher than anyone anticipated, and now, the question that hung over the arena wasn't just who will win, but also will they both walk out alive. As the fight was rescheduled, fans around the globe prepared themselves for an unforgettable spectacle, yet they couldn't shake the looming unease. Tyson's return held the promise of thrilling nostalgia, but the warning signs were impossible to ignore. Could a man who once embodied the spirit of boxing defy the odds, or was he stepping into the ring one last time, chasing a ghost of his former self? As the fight drew closer, both fighters embarked on their final preparations, knowing that this was more than just a battle for victory. It was a fight for survival. In the quiet hours of training, away from the glaring lights and the eyes of fans, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul were engaged in their own intense rituals of readiness. They were not strangers to the stakes involved. Both men understood the lurking dangers that could claim victory or end in tragedy. For Tyson, each training session was a test of his body's endurance and his heart's resilience. His team carefully monitored his vital signs, keeping a close eye on his blood pressure, heart rate, and overall physical condition. Tyson pushed himself to his limits with controlled precision, refusing to let age dictate his performance. This fight represented the final chapters of his career, and he intended to go out with the same force he had always shown. But he was also realistic. He knew that, even with the best trainers and medical experts by his side, he was stepping into the unknown. Each punch he threw, every round he sparred, reminded him of the risks. Yet, for Tyson, the thought of one last glorious stand was worth it, and he pushed forward, choosing to trust in his body's ability to withstand the grueling demands. Across the gym from Tyson's camp, Jake Paul prepared in his own way. Though younger, he knew that his usual training regime wouldn't suffice against someone like Tyson, a force with decades of experience and the raw power of a seasoned heavyweight. Paul's team focused on conditioning him to withstand Tyson's infamous punching power. Defense became their mantra. Paul drilled endlessly to strengthen his guard and speed, knowing that a single blow from Tyson could end it all. This was not just about entertainment or proving his place in the ring. This was about survival. Jake Paul, the provocateur-turned-contender, now found himself preparing with the seriousness of a soldier entering battle. His spirit was fueled by the challenge, yet tempered by the awareness of the reality he faced. In the days leading up to the fight, both fighters found themselves caught between confidence and caution. Tyson and Paul were no strangers to the risks, but the intensity of the preparations had cemented their awareness. The brutal reality of heavyweight boxing lay in its ruthless potential for harm. Even with all the medical checks, the training, and the specialized preparation, both men knew that once they stepped into that ring, they would be vulnerable to forces beyond their control. Finally, the night of the fight arrived, and the energy in the arena was electric. Fans filled the seats, their cheers mingling with a quiet undercurrent of tension. The crowd was here to witness history, but they also felt the weight of what this fight could mean. As Tyson and Paul stepped into the ring, they both felt the weight of the moment pressing down on them, the years of training, the weeks of preparation, and the understanding that everything was about to unfold in these few, intense rounds. As the bell sounded, both men faced each other, bound by the same risk, the same ambition, and the same unbreakable spirit. For Tyson, it was a chance to end his legacy on his terms, defying the limits of age and resilience. For Paul, it was an opportunity to prove his worth against one of the greatest and most feared fighters the world had ever known. And for everyone watching, it was the culmination of a journey charged with excitement, fear, and anticipation. In that ring, they each put everything on the line: their bodies, their spirits, their legacies. The world watched, captivated, as Tyson and Paul danced a dangerous line between glory and peril, embodying the essence of boxing. The fight for survival, honor, and an unrelenting spirit that defies even the harshest of odds. The lights dimmed, and the anticipation grew electric as the date of the fight neared. But in the days leading up to the main event, a darker undercurrent had begun to weave through the story of this fight. At the heart of it was a stark reality. The dangers Mike Tyson faced in the ring were nothing short of life-threatening. With every passing day, questions about his safety grew louder, and the odds of something going wrong loomed heavier in the minds of fans and experts alike. Tyson, at 58, was stepping into a heavyweight fight, an arena reserved for the sport's most powerful, where a single punch could dismantle even the most resilient athletes. Time had weathered Tyson's body, even if his spirit remained intact. Years of brutal training, concussive punches, and championship rounds had left a trail of damage. Now, his body bore scars not just from opponents, but from age itself. High blood pressure, the threat of heart complications, and the shadows of past concussions all converged, making this fight a gamble far greater than any Tyson had ever faced. Physicians warned that Tyson's cardiovascular system, no longer in its prime, could be pushed to dangerous limits during the fight. For a heavyweight bout, the demand on his heart and lungs would be immense. The stress of combat could escalate his blood pressure to perilous levels, risking heart failure or a fatal stroke. One wrong hit, a punch to the chest, a blow to the head, could bring on a crisis from which he might not recover. A cold reality settled in. Tyson's willpower alone might not be enough to save him from these dangers. Yet, Tyson's opponent, Jake Paul, was not immune to the risks either. Though young and seemingly less vulnerable, Paul was still relatively inexperienced when it came to facing true heavyweights. Tyson, even at his age, carried a punch that could shatter bone, break ribs, or knock an opponent unconscious within seconds. Paul, who had built a name for himself through unorthodox means, was now standing across from a man whose power was the stuff of legend. One well-placed strike from Tyson could leave Paul with injuries he'd carry for the rest of his life, or worse. The strength Tyson possessed, even in his later years, was ferocious, and Paul's speed and agility would be tested like never before. Fans were drawn to the spectacle of the bout, but a sobering reality set in as the potential for irreversible damage hung over both fighters. For Tyson, the stakes were a matter of survival. For Paul, the chance of facing devastating injury against a legend whose skill and power were both weapon and liability. Behind the scenes, both fighters knew the risks all too well. Tyson's team had spared no expense, involving medical experts, trainers, and conditioning specialists to ensure that every aspect of his health was accounted for. Strengthened by rigorous physical preparation, Tyson hoped to keep his aging body resilient enough to endure the blows, even as his heart and muscles worked harder than they had in years. On the other side, Paul trained with equal intensity, focusing on building the endurance and defenses he'd need to stand against Tyson's onslaught. Both men were preparing for the worst but hoping for the best, understanding that every precaution could still fall short in the brutal reality of a heavyweight fight. With the event closing in, a palpable tension settled over the boxing community. Fans, torn between excitement and fear, wondered if the upcoming match would be a testament to the enduring strength of Tyson or a reminder of the unforgiving nature of the sport. The thrill of the fight was undeniable, but so was the specter of potential tragedy. As the fighters readied themselves, it became clear that this was no ordinary bout. It was a test of endurance, survival, and the price of legacy. The world held its breath, knowing that once Tyson and Paul entered the ring, anything could happen, and it could all change with a single, decisive punch.